This is the School Success Podcast, a podcast for school leaders to learn from other school leaders what's working and what's not, and to get inspiration and encouragement, as well as strategies to grow school enrollment, connect with families, retain teachers, recruit teachers, and everything in between. You guys are heroes, and I cannot thank you enough for pouring into this next generation that's coming behind us. My goal is you will take at least one thing away from every episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. Please enjoy the School Success Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Herzog Foundation.
Time for school.
Hey, School Success Makers. Welcome to another edition of the School Success Podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Slater, joined by a new friend out of the great state of Ohio, Dave Smith, who is the head of school of Cornerstone Community School in Talmadge, Ohio. Got connected with him a little over a month ago through the Herzog Foundation, and we got to talk about his school and some of the things we're going to be talking about today. And a couple of them I'm really excited about because we actually haven't had anybody talk about some of these specific things before, and those are always fun for a podcast. So we're going to have fun as always today, but before we jump into today's episode, I, of course, always pass it off to our guests to introduce themselves. So, Dave, welcome to the podcast today, sir.
Thanks so much for having me.
We're going to have a blast, man. So here's the question to start off, everybody gets, okay? I know I told you this before we even started recording. I don't think I've ever been to Ohio. I think I've landed in an airport that does not count. So I will say this. If I ever visited you in Talmadge, Ohio, what would you say? Mitchell, you need to eat this and do this to experience Talmadge, Ohio.
All right. Well, Talmadge is just outside of Akron. So everybody knows of Akron, Ohio, because that's where LeBron's from. So we are just north of Akron and so south of Cleveland. So I would actually send you to Cleveland because that's where my roots are from, actually. I grew up in Cleveland Heights, where Travis Kelce's from. Another famous podcast, maybe not as famous as yours, but that's another famous one. But I would send you up towards Cleveland, and you would probably have to go get some corned beef from Slyman's.
Okay.
And then you would have to experience Cleveland. You're going to have to go to the sporting events there. So I love going to Cavs games, Browns games. I still call them the Tribe, still the Tribe to me, but Guardians games for those that don't know.
Okay.
So I'd send you up that way, and that's I think that would be the experience you'd need.
So I'm assuming then, does that mean you actually are a Browns fan?
I am a Browns fan, and the draft is coming up, so the Super Bowl's here.
That's right. So me as a Bears fan, I understand you. I feel like we can, I haven't ever experienced. I mean, I watched the Bears play in a Super Bowl back in 2006 when I was a kid in high school, but I've never seen a victory. I know you've never seen a Cleveland Browns Super Bowl victory.
No, I have not.
But when I meet people of like fans of like the Browns, the Lions, which I know the Lions are kind of good now, it's like, wow, that is a real fan right there to be a fan of the Browns. So congrats.
It takes a special person.
It does. Good luck at the draft, because I know as we record this, draft is in like, golly, 4 weeks, 3 weeks or something like that. I'm looking forward to it. But this will be airing over the summer, so people already know what our team is like for the year. So awesome.
You're right.
Well, as we jump in today, give me a little bit of background on you, on the school, how you got there, and then obviously I got some questions for you for today.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm a product of Christian education, kindergarten to fifth grade. And after fifth grade, my parents pulled me out of the Christian school that I was in and sent me to public school 6 to 12. Because I think that at that time, I think that oftentimes, or in those 80s and 90s era of Christian education, sometimes Christian education was a little bit second class in terms of the actual education. And so my parents felt like I wasn't getting the challenges that I needed in my Christian school. So they pulled me out of there, put me into the public school where there were some more like advanced type classes and more of a challenge for me. For 6 to 12, I went to Grove City College for my undergrad, and told my parents all along that I would never, ever teach in a Christian school. And of course, God laughed at that. So I went back and actually taught in my elementary school for my first 3 years of education, which was a blast until, you have to talk to your teachers that you had and try to call them by their first names, and you just can't do that after a certain point. Like I'm not calling you Doris. No, I won't do it. So, I had to go through that one, but I taught there for 3 years, taught at another Christian school for 9 years, became kind of like the lead teacher in a lot of ways there, and got some on-the-job training for what it looked like to be in leadership. And then got called to interview here at Cornerstone in Talmadge here. It was a small school, about 94 kids when I started here, and kindergarten to 6th grade at that time. And we just kind of it's been 12 years that I've been here now, and I love what we're doing. I love our mission is educating children to love learning, develop character, and follow Jesus, which I think that if we do those things really well, then we are kind of hitting a lot of those important things for the kingdom. So I've loved my time here, and I love most days that I work. So.
Well, I get most. That's good. You can't love all of them, right?
They're not all great. They're not all great.
So 94 when you started, that was 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
How many students are you guys at today?
About 196.
196. So obviously you guys have had over doubled in those years that you've been there. Still the same building, or have you guys had to add on to the building? What does that look like as a group?
It is still the same building. We bought about 2 years before I got here, we bought a decommissioned Talmadge elementary school. So it was what used for their K-1-2, I think, originally. And then they consolidated some buildings, built a bigger, elementary type school, stopped going to the neighborhood smaller schools and built something bigger. So we have a 1950s public elementary school is our setup here. So we have been in the same building since I got here.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah.
And so obviously doubled growth in 12 years. What got you there? What was there some specific things you put in place, the team put in place that helped you guys get to the number you're at right now?
Yeah, so I think that for the first few years, we were pretty stable we went from that 94 to maybe around 120 for a few years. And one of the things that we did my second year that we were here, we actually added a pre-K. So we went from K to 6 to pre-K to 6. And so that brought in about 14 kids or so, bringing in that pre-K, and then we really did kind of stabilize in those 120s to 140 range for quite some time, where it was this is kind of where we've been, and I think that to answer your question of what changed, there's been some Ohio laws that have kind of helped us out in terms of school choice programs. So Ohio is a school choice state with what they call around here like a voucher type program, where our students in K to 8 get a $6,165 scholarship to be used, and everybody qualifies for all or part of that. So that absolutely helped us out. A lot of families that felt like Christian education was out of reach financially, that absolutely helped us. And I think that, I heard somebody say recently that in the Christian education movement, COVID gave 10 years of growth in 1 year of just kind of seeing what's going on, where are the gaps, what are some of our other schools not doing well, and what are our Christian schools or private schools doing better, or should I homeschool? And we had all of those things that happened as well. So that 2020, we saw a big shift in that education field as well.
And what was crazy about that year, and obviously I'm not a school leader specifically here, but it was like not controlled. You go like, hey, here's a whole bunch of students of people. I heard a lot of stories, and thankfully so far I've not heard of the horror stories that I was predicting potentially would happen, where these schools, Christian schools specifically, get flooded with people. They're bursting at the seams. They're open. This is great. And I heard all these churches or all these schools are like, we need to build a bigger building. We need to add on. We need to do these things. And I'm going, okay, well, don't go crazy here, because what I don't want is people go, oh, you know what? Actually, I'm going to go back to the public school or back to whatever school I was at and then numbers tank, and they can't pay their mortgage on these new buildings that they filled. Now, I'm sure that has happened. I haven't heard of it, but that's what I was afraid of because it was growth so quickly. Everybody got excited. What did you see a little bit of that there close by?
Yeah, so I think that at that time we ended the 2020 school year, which had the shutdown, um, and we started the next year with exactly the same number of students.
Okay.
And part of the reason that we had that is because we had kind of capped classes of we're not going to just add just one more, because our budget was set to have X number of students and we didn't need just one more. And I think that one of the big things that we've recognized through the time of growth is the importance of not growing too fast, because like you said, there are a lot of people that have very fast growth, and then you have issues that come with that, including, but if they leave, then what happens? And so we didn't want to just start opening sections that didn't make sense for us, because honestly, being a school leader at that time, every day, in the Bible, it says that like one day is like 1,000 years, or, that's how it felt like for us as school leaders too. One day here at school in that beginning of the 2020 fall felt like 1,000 years. It was like we were holding on for dear life. We were hoping to make it to Labor Day. We were thanking God when we made it to fall break. We were ecstatic to make it to Christmas, because we thought we were going to get shut down at every step of the way with new rules and with new health guidelines and everything that came with that. So that COVID time for us was it was brutal for us as school leaders and for our teachers, and the amount of stress that was on all of us in providing for our kids while also trying to stay in line with all the guidelines that were given to us. That was very tricky. But God provided for us all the way through that. We actually had the healthiest year ever, was that 2020 to 21 school year, probably because we really did a good job of distancing our students so that, we didn't have to get shut down if somebody was getting sick, so it was crazy. It was crazy. I know this isn't a COVID conversation, but man, it comes up all the time, of how did COVID change schools, and how did it make me lose my hair? All of the things that were involved, of the chaos that came with COVID.
That's when I officially committed to baldness as well. For
There you
me,
go.
I was still going to the barber at that time, and then I was like,
Yeah,
everybody's
yeah,
like locking down, so I said it's over,
yeah,
and I've been
yeah.
shining up and balding ever since. So
There you go.
here we go.
Love it.
I'm going to look the same for years to come, though. That's why I keep telling them, like, the kids at church will call me Mr. Clean. They'll be like, "Hey, Mr.
Yeah.
Clean," I'm like, "I'll take it
Yeah.
as a compliment, thanks." But
Yeah, you won't age. You won't age.
I got that gray in the beard like you have, and I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I can't believe I have gray in my beard.
I know.
My cross to bear. It's okay. But I want to go back to one thing you said earlier. You said when you started, it was a few years later, you decided to add a pre-K. What was the reason why? Why was that you guys wanted to add one lower?
Yeah, I think that what I saw in my previous schools was how successful pre-K was in feeding into our kindergarten. Right, we were at that time when you're talking about 94 kids in K through 6, those are very small classes at that point, and I felt like it was necessary to get a pipeline of kids that are kind of built in going into kindergarten. And so I worked with some, my own personal experience with what a pre-K could do for a school. If you did the pre-K really well, you would see some of those things. You would see that number move into kindergarten if you did it well. I talked to a bunch of school leaders in the area, and I said, "Hey, tell me your percentages of kids that go from pre-K to kindergarten." And we started looking through those sorts of things. And so for us, it was, we needed exposure of, we are a school that provides an excellent service in a Christian environment, and it is within reach, and we want you to be able to get here. And so our pre-K program has been fantastic. That is the one spot that we haven't doubled. I'm sure we'll talk about kind of doubling our classes as we've gone along. We've kept our pre-K at just one pre-K. Going into 2 kindergartens, and our reason for that, honestly, there's a couple. There's two or three different reasons. Reason number one is we are going to run out of classroom space at a certain point, and in my grand scheme, I don't have a space for a second pre-K. Reason number two is that pre-K has special rules, and they're a pain for me to deal with at times, and I don't really want to double that. And reason number three is I don't want to be exclusive, where if you didn't get in pre-K, that you're not going to get into Cornerstone. And so I love that we have an entire class of kindergarten of brand new students to the school, because I don't believe that every family needs to have a structured pre-K setting to be ready for kindergarten. And not every family can afford that either. And so, so we have one pre-K class that feeds two kindergarten classes. So 50% of our kindergartners are brand new to the school. And so in my thinking and in my hope, it keeps us from feeling exclusive, because I know of some other schools where they've got 100 pre-K students going into their 100 kindergarten spaces. And if you didn't start sending your kid in the 3-year-old pre-K and then moving them to 4-year-old pre-K and then going to kindergarten, you have no chance of getting in unless somebody leaves. And I hate that feeling. Yeah. And I know that nobody wants to, I hope nobody wants to feel exclusive in Christian education, but that's my practical way of keeping it from being exclusive. So I could say, yeah, you don't have to come to pre-K to get into Cornerstone.
I like that. So there's a school here. I can't even remember what the school was, but I remember when we were pregnant, we had people come up to us and be like, oh, you need to, as soon as they're born, you need to go down to the so-and-so school and put their name on the list. And I remember looking at them and being like, are you serious? And they were saying that if you don't do it that soon, you don't get a spot in the school, and it goes all the way through or something. And I was like, okay. And we never did, which we knew we were going to homeschool. So like, we were like, no, we're good. But I thought that's wild. Like taking your infant down to say I'm registering with my birth certificate for this. That's crazy to me that you want to do that.
Yeah, we get people coming in with like 2-year-olds for our 4-year-old program, and I'm kind of like, okay. But they know that there's a limited number of spaces into that pre-K, and if they really want to be in our pre-K program, then they try to get early on it. But it's like, no, we're not putting you on a list. Like applications will open when they open, and we'll make sure you're fully aware of it. And then they come back and they tour like 2 or 3 years in a row, just so that I know their faces. And I'm like, okay, and I hate
that. So as you're saying this, something that comes to mind, I'm thinking, okay, one, I'm hoping that those that are listening that maybe are just a K5, K6, K12, whatever school, are like, oh, you know what? I never thought about adding a pre-K side, but then I naturally have this thought of like, okay, if you had a pre-K, I know you're tight on space over there. Why not add infant? And you say, hey, we're going to just start really early, and we're going to get more students in, and they're going to all just feed each other. Why not do that for schools?
Yeah, so I think that there are some schools that do that they have like a daycare type program where, and I know some schools that do a pre-K3 program that do it really well. But we try to incorporate our pre-K into our daily school schedule, and younger than that, I don't think they could do it. So they still, in our school, they still go to phys ed with our phys ed teacher. They go to music and library, and they're in our programs, and they are part of who we are. Now they're a different part of who we are. Like we don't have them take Spanish like our K-5s do. But they are a part of, they're on the same schedule as us. They are a part of our school. And I feel like if you dropped it down further, for us, I don't think that they could culturally fit the same way that our 4-year-olds can. I don't think 3-year-olds could do the same. So I would say that for a school leader, it would be know what you're in the business of, because I thought that your question is going to be like, why aren't you adding a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade if you're doing elementary well? Because that's the question we always get asked. And I say, well, because we're in the business of elementary school and we are trying to do that well. And there are others that are in the business of middle school and high school, and they're looking to do that well. And so we need to know who we are. And so for us, we think that we are really, really good at doing pre-K to 5.
Hey, school success makers, Mitchell here. I just want to take a really quick break from the show to give a big, huge shout out to the Herzog Foundation. I absolutely love the Herzog Foundation. I've been friends and partners with them for a couple years now, but we're bringing it to a whole new level. And I'm excited to share that our very own School Success podcast is now featured on the Herzog Foundation Podcast Network. The Herzog Foundation is a powerhouse of resources designed to support schools like yours, from free training events through the Herzog Foundation Institute to their incredible online news publication, The Lion, and of course, our new podcast, Home. They have everything you need to stay informed and inspired. And if you're dreaming of starting your own Christian school or co-op, don't miss their online course, Schoolbox. It's a fantastic resource to help you get started on the right foot. At School Success, we're proud to partner with the Herzog Foundation to bring you these valuable tools and insights. So visit herzogfoundation.com to explore all they have to offer. Trust me, you won't want to miss out on these amazing opportunities for growth and success. And I love all the people over there, and I know you guys will too. So please go check them out, and you won't be disappointed. Now, back to the show. Man, well, that was my next question. See, why not just add, high school? Why aren't you a K-12 yet, Dave? I mean, come on now. Just add all the rest of them.
Yeah, and I love that I've got little people with littler problems. So, I've got my kids at home are 14, 16, and 16. So I've got high schoolers and I've got a middle schooler, and I don't want to deal with that all day either. So I'm good with my little people, with like teaching our kindergartners how to share and how to be kind, and how to do the things that they're supposed to do, and teaching our fifth graders, like, you're not the center of the world, and no, you can't say something like that to somebody else. It's just not cool.
Yep.
So yeah, we work through character things that way, but it's a lot easier than some of the bigger problems with the bigger people.
Yeah, I get that. So you've done a really good job of truly having controlled growth, because seeing as you guys have doubled since you've been there, I feel like naturally your mind would go to, we need to do a capital campaign. We need to buy some property. We need to build a bigger building. We need to add another 6 grades. We need to build, keep going. And you're like, nope, we're actually going to stay this. And actually, I know you did something really cool. You actually kind of, you shrunk in a way. I would love you to share a little bit about that too, about like, one, your mindset of growth and how you controlled it. But I know you did something really cool with one of your grades. Yeah.
So I'll start with what we did with our 6th grade. Actually, we in our area, in the Akron area, most of our public elementary schools are K-5s. And so when I got here, Cornerstone was a K-6, and then we were pre-K to 6. And our biggest Christian school that most of our students go to is a 7 to 12 at the time. And so they were finding that they were having problems of getting those 6th graders, after coming out of the public school, that their parents wanted them to come into Christian education for middle school and high school. But their issue was that they were ending in 5th grade in their public school, would have to go to their public middle school for 1 year, and then would have to transition to the 7 to 12 that was down the road from us, that most of our kids go to. And so they did a bunch of studies and said, 11 of 14 of the closest districts to us are, end middle or end elementary school in 5th grade. So we think that for Christian education, for the betterment of Christian education, we think it'd be best if we offered 6th grade. And so they wanted to go 6 to 12, and they said, but we want to talk to our schools that we are closely partnered with, where we get our Christian education kids, and they wanted to ask us, would we consider dropping 6th grade for them? And so we looked at that whole thing. We kind of looked at the districts around us. We looked at, where do our kids go? And we found that, our kids are still likely going to go over there and just start there in 6th grade instead of starting in 7th grade. And our kids that went to public districts, it made more sense for them as well to leave from here after 5th grade and go to the 6 to 8 of their public schools, if that's where they were going to go after this. So we made the difficult decision to say, for the betterment of Christian education in the area, we will drop our 6th grade. They loved our 6th grade teacher, and she actually went over there and helped them get that program started. She was their first teacher hire into that position. and we worked really well, and so it's been a good thing for Christian education. I think that we could look at it and say there are things that they can offer in sixth grade that we couldn't offer, and there's a setting here in elementary school that they can't offer having it as part of the middle school. So there's absolutely some trade-offs there. Because if you actually do some studies on sixth graders, you'll find that they are interesting animals that will be great leaders with younger kids below them, but then will struggle with the older kids above them. And really the best place for them is on an island and let them figure out a little bit who they are. So neither one of us had that setting for them. So we decided to allow them to open. They were going to do what they needed to do, but we decided to partner with them in that opening of a sixth grade and give them that runway of, yeah, our kids are going to be available here after fifth grade. So we just kind of changed how we did things, which did bring some cultural changes for us. We used to do a fifth and sixth grade band. We tried doing a fourth and fifth grade band for a year and found that fourth graders can't reach the end of a saxophone or a trombone, and they were terrible at that. So we had to make some changes there. We ended up having our third and fourth graders go back to the recorders, or as I like to call it, the devil's flute. And then our fifth graders actually do ukuleles now, which we kind of love. So it sounds like a luau as they're walking around school with their ukuleles. So we had to make some changes that came with that. It was a hard thing culturally for us. But that kind of leads me back to the beginning of your question, which was about that growth. And I think that a key for us has been not just looking at growth, but looking at culture, growth, and space all at the same time, and recognizing the importance of making sure those line up correctly and line up well. Because anytime there's a change, you're going to have a culture shift with it. And so for us, we felt a culture shift when we dropped our sixth grade. It was different. That first year was different. Our fifth graders had new responsibilities that used to be sixth grade responsibility. We had a year where we treated both our fifth and sixth graders like the oldest students in the school. Like we had those things that we had to kind of nuance through. But then it became, okay, well, this is our new normal. So what are we going to do with it? So I think that a lot of schools, coming back to your question about, how did we get this growth? Our growth has been very methodical. And for the last few years, we added a second kindergarten. Then we took one at a time, added a second first grade, added another second grade. This year, we've got 2 third grades. We are currently looking to add another fourth grade next year. And then the year after that, we will be doubled all the way through. Wow. And I think that is because we never wanted to have a time where our culture from the school, from growth, really took over and messed us up.
Yeah. Well, I love so many things of this. One, I love that you were willing to give up sixth grade and give up the teacher, which obviously if you're giving up sixth grade, you're like, well, obviously if you had a really good teacher, the really good ones are hard to find. So you're like, well, shoot, maybe I can find another spot for her, but you were willing to give her away to the other school, which I love. I also love, because here, I feel like most schools are listening right now and they're like, what about all that lost revenue, all that lost money? You had all these, it was full, there was money coming in, and you're saying, you know what, we're going to get rid of that, which if there's 10 students, I don't know how many were in there, it's obviously over $100,000 a year of like revenue. Well, we're losing that revenue. So what was that mindset like of going, man, we're getting rid of a great teacher, we're having less revenue? What did that kind of feel like and look like for you guys to make that decision?
It felt hard. We had to really fight through that and figure out what will this do for us financially, because we were in a spot at that point where we were feeling everything. So how much money came in mattered, and how we worked through that really changed what we were doing. So we looked at it and said, if money's the biggest issue, we're in a bad spot. It can't be a money decision.
Yeah.
It has to be a kingdom. So that's what we ended up doing, deciding that the kingdom is more important.
Amen. I love it. Well, I know we talked about culture, we talked about growth. There was one thing you mentioned in our pre-interview call about something you do on Fridays. I want to hear what happens on Fridays.
Yeah, so that's one of our big culture things, and as I said, culture, space, and growth matter, and for us, recognizing that if we grow too fast, we'll lose culture. So for me, if we were to add multiple grades at the same time, we would find that having a third of our students being new students and a third of our teachers being new teachers, we would miss out on what makes us unique and why people want to come to Cornerstone in the first place. So one of our big areas that we are still trying to figure out right now is how do we do these programs that are differentiators for us? And so one of the biggest programs that we're trying to figure out right now as we gain students and work with leadership is Fantastic Friday. And Fantastic Friday for us is from 1 to 3 on most Friday afternoons. We have a parent-led exploratory options for our students to choose from, and they get to do that. And while they're doing that, our teachers have time for meetings, collaboration, catching up on lesson planning, getting their grades turned in, whatever that is. So it is completely outside of our teachers from 1 to 3 on Fridays for 1st through 5th graders. We do a little program on Mondays for our kindergartners. We call it Marvelous Monday because, Fantastic Friday, Marvelous Monday, it works. It gives those teachers a little bit of a break too in collaboration time, and that's parent-led as well. But this is Fantastic Friday is taking the skills of our community to be able to teach them to our kids. So our school's name is Cornerstone Community School. We frequently say that community is our middle name, and we take it seriously. And so this is an opportunity for our community to come in and teach our kids things. So we might have on any given Friday, we could have a group of students that are playing soccer across the street on the field there. We could have a group that's making candy in the kitchen. We could have a group that's learning how to code a video game. We could have rockets being launched in our backyard. We could have a bow and arrow type thing with some archery going on. We could have a little field trip type thing to go hiking. We've had groups gardening. We've had sewing groups. We've had everything, like anything you could think of. We've had like some older people in our community come in and teach the kids like 1800 skills of like candle making and whatnot. And all the, whatever those cool things are that you can imagine, we've had that take place. So for me, Fantastic Friday is like the highlight of the week for the kids. And it's the opportunity that they have to do something that's completely not related to school. They get to choose. So we'll give them a list of 10 options. They give us our top 3, and we fill those in and try to line them up, match them up with where it's going to make sense, but give them a wonderful learning experience that's not typically school related. So as we grow, I just had a meeting with our fantastic, I call them our top 10 volunteers that come in for Fantastic Friday. They're the ones that are in almost every week for it. And we talked about things like, what's the ideal size for a Fantastic Friday group? And of course they all say 12. And I'm like, yeah, let's doing some math here. That's not going to happen, right? 12 is not going to happen when we've got 10 groups and 200 kids next year, right? That are in Fantastic Friday. So let's put 12 to rest. But it's, what do you need to be successful in Fantastic Friday? And so we were able to kind of go through those things as leaders. Like, what do you need? How do we continue to do Fantastic Friday as we've doubled in size, where we don't have double the number of empty classrooms, we've got less. So this year we had to start putting a rotation of teachers that made their classroom available for Fantastic Friday. So we had to do that. That's a culture shift for us because our teachers used to just be able to kind of work in their classrooms. And so we have a rotation now of like, hey, every few sessions, your classroom is going to be used. So that means that you're going to have to collaborate elsewhere. You're going to have to take it to the teacher's lounge. You're going to have to do whatever you need to do. And that's part of growing pains. that you have to deal with. So so for us to be able to have those conversations and looking forward to next year, we're at 196 this year. We're expecting the two teens next year, 215 to 218, somewhere in there, by adding that fourth grade, which is just the next double kindergarten coming in.
Okay.
So we're expecting that 215 to 218. So how does that impact another group that's going to be into Fantastic Friday? So so we've really had to talk through those things, and how do we not lose who we are while growing? And then and I think that leads into the question that school leaders need to have and say, do you have any programs that you hold at such a high pedestal that you wouldn't be willing to give it up for, again, the betterment of Christian education? Because when it comes down to it, more kids in Christian education matters more than more programs. And trying to figure out those things too. Like I want, again, our mission, educating children to love learning, develop character, and follow Jesus. Love learning, a lot of Fantastic Friday brings that in. And loving to learn about, we had a group of like 5th or 6th grade boys back in the day when I first started that took sewing together for Fantastic Friday, which was hilarious. And they made pajama pants. I loved that. I love to see that group do those things. And they loved to learn that together, and they had no idea that they would love to learn that together.
Cool.
And we've had kids do all of these things. And so love learning matters. So if we lost Fantastic Friday because we got too big, then we would struggle with some of our mission as well. So that's why, to me, it's always looking through it in the lens of, what is your mission? What do you want to do? Because somebody could say, well, just drop Fantastic Friday.
Yeah.
And to me, that's not an option until we get to a point where we can't fulfill the rest of our mission, which is develop character and follow Jesus while giving them the education they need. So it's all of those balance. It's all a balancing act that you have to really work with.
Hey, I just want to take a really quick break from the podcast to highlight one of our amazing partners and sponsors, ClassReach. If you're a new school administrator or founder and are struggling to keep up with all the hassles of planting a new school, like collecting tuition, communicating with parents, or handling student data, then you need ClassReach. ClassReach is the all-in-one software that helps with everything from admissions and tuition to classroom management and parent communications. Sign up for a free consultation with one of their school specialists and see how ClassReach can help your school grow today. You guys can check them out online, classreach.com. They are a kingdom-minded company, and I love their leadership team there. I've become friends with a lot of them. They truly are a great company. I support them, and I love them, and you guys will love them too. Check them out at classreach.com. Now, back to the show. And this is why, obviously, having a mission is so valuable, and I know most schools do, but I think maybe they all have one. We ChatGPT the mission. It's over there on the wall,
Mm-hmm.
But if you have one, it helps guide all these decisions that you make. Because now, as you guys are growing, you go, "Oh, here we need to do this. Wait, hold on. Look at the mission. We can't do that when it's going to pull us away from the mission. It actually has this guiding light of what you're supposed to do, and you're literally living that out. Exactly, going like, nope, we have to keep this because this is making us fulfill our mission."
Yeah, and honestly, about 5 years ago, we changed our mission. When the school was founded, it was educating children to transform their world for the glory of God. And I struggled with that because I said, I don't know any world transformers myself, right? I've been on the earth for, at that time, 41 years, whatever. And I don't know anybody that's really transformed the world. And that's not to say that we can't have a student come through here and be the next Billy Graham, or, that's not to say that we can't, but I felt like that mission was too big for us as an elementary school. Yep. And I wanted to be able to sit with parents and say, here's our mission: educating children to love learning, develop character, and follow Jesus. And here's how we're going to do each of those 4 things. And that's what our finished product needs to look like. So when I sit with them in admissions meetings and I say, what's your goal for your child when they leave Cornerstone after 5th grade? They give me their things, and I say, let me tell you what my goal is. And I go through each of those steps with them. We want them to have the best education possible. We want them to be prepared for whatever school they go to next, whether it's CVCA down the road, the Christian school that most of our kids go to, or Talmadge Middle School, or the highest prep school. I don't care. I want them to be prepared for whatever that is. But then I go through that as well, and I say I want them to love coming to school in 5th grade like they do in kindergarten. I want them to have a desire to not just read about it, but to go and experience it. I want them to have those things in place, and I want them to love learning something new and experiencing something that they didn't know that they would love. And we talk about biblical character. Every school, I think, talks about character. I love to be able to talk about biblical character in kind of how we deal with discipline, how we deal with classroom issues, how we deal with interactions with others. Like, all of those things matter. And then, we talk about following Jesus and how, for me, I said, listen, I want our kindergartners to know that there's a God that loves them. And I want our 5th graders to be wrestling with, there's a God that loves me, desperately wants a relationship with me. And what am I going to do about it? And so I'm able to take that mission statement and say, in every meeting that I have with a parent, everything's filtered through that. At our open house, everything's filtered through that. I need to do a better job of getting our teachers on board, of using it the same way. And I think that that's just something that comes with time and practice. But for me, that is the key, is bringing all of that together, doing that in a way where things don't take away from that. I don't want growth to ever take away from that. Like, if our culture is our mission, I don't ever want to say, but I could speed things up a little bit and lose something on the culture side. So that's why we've been so methodical when it comes to our growth. We had the opportunity to add another grade that would have not really fit with the model that we were doing, which was 1 year at a time, adding one section. And I was adamant that we didn't do it. Even though we had the numbers for it, I just said no. Like, I don't think that this works. And if we are committed to the culture portion of culture growth in space, then moving forward with that just doesn't make sense. So being willing to say to my board, we make this work without adding that now. Like, yes, there are things we could do with that extra money. Yes, we could bring the students in, but God will provide the students again if we do this the right way.
And it's working out. Whatever, all the things you guys have put in place, it seems like it's working. So I love that. So let me wrap up with one final question for you before we sign off for today. Obviously, all this has been great advice. It's all been encouraging, but I'll just ask one final question, which is this. If you were to share one final piece of advice for the school leaders that are listening, it could be anything, it could be on what we talked about, or just a general advice, what would that one final piece of advice be?
I think that I think that one of the things that I learned very early on as a school leader is, and I'll take it back to culture. I think that every school leader needs to recognize that you don't go in and change a culture until you learn the culture that you're going into. That was a very specific thing for me. When I came to Cornerstone, I came at a turbulent time. I don't know how much buy-in there was to me coming in as the young school leader without having to backfill kind of the education, having to, to learn on the job. But one of the things that, we talked about a pre-K right off the bat at one of my first teachers meetings, that we are looking to do this, that the board is, and one of the teachers said, so are you just going to come in and change everything? And I said, no, because I don't believe that you should work to change a culture until you know it. And I think that that's an important thing. Once you recognize there's an issue with something, then you need to work to change that. But I think that it's really important to give it time to recognize, like, who is this group of people that I'm working with? God has called them and put them in place, and he's called me to lead them. But how do I do that well, in, again, methodical and prayerful, and with all the information necessary? I think that as a leader, I give people space to do what works best for them. And then I step in when I see it's not working, as opposed to coming through the other way and saying, this is how I want everything done all the time. Because as a school leader, I am bent on creating people in my own image. And I recognize that God uses lots of different types of people to do the same job, to do it really well. And so I would say, learn your people, learn your culture, and don't change things until you know it.
Love that advice. Solid. All right. Well, Dave, obviously, I know I said it, I'll say it again. Thank you for taking time out of your day to be on the podcast to share with our audience. And obviously, I'm going to say Big fan of what you guys are doing there in Ohio. Wishing you nothing but the best as you add those final 2 classes to those grades and get to full-on capacity, and wish you guys nothing but the best in the coming years.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.
Well, another huge shout out and a thank you to our guests for taking time and being on the podcast today. I love the people that I get to interview in this podcast. And as always, I'm hoping you guys are able to take at least one thing away from today's episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. Before you guys go, I do want to make sure you are aware of our 3 free resources available here at School Success. And the first one is, of course, the podcast that you're listening to right now. We are dropping weekly episodes every single Monday morning. We want to make sure you guys aren't missing out. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And if you haven't left a 5-star review, we would love a 5-star review as well. The second one is on our website, schoolsuccessmakers.com. In the top right-hand corner is a button, School Success Report. You just click that and sign up for that. We send it directly to your inbox every single week. It's full of different articles our team has either found or written to help you, the school leader, be more successful. And last but not least is our free Facebook community called School Success Makers. It's an awesome place. I'm personally in there. I'd love to see you in there as well. Get some good community around you, ask questions, and just have some fun. So make sure you are joining our free Facebook community. We'd love to see you in there. All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. We'll be back here next week with another awesome guest as usual on the School Success Podcast. We'll see you then. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Herzog Foundation.